Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be stepping back in time to explore early India.
Oh, wow.
Roughly 600 BCE to 600 CE.
Okay.
We're talking empires,
All right.
ancient cities, and the very beginnings of organized agriculture.
Sounds good.
You've provided us with historical texts, archaeological reports,
Mm-hmm.
even some old stories, a real treasure trove to dive into.
Yeah, it's a period just bursting with change, really.
So much of Indian history starts here.
Absolutely.
So I'm ready to jump in.
All right.
What really stands out to you from all this material as we begin our deep dive?
Well, one thing that always gets me is how around the 6th century BCE,
Okay.
we see these powerful states just popping up all over the place.
Yeah.
The Mahajanapada.
16 of them, right?
That's right.
What makes them so different from what came before?
Before you had smaller scattered communities,
Right.
but now you've got these organized states.
Okay.
Some with kings and some with,
With
wait for it,
Okay.
groups of leaders sharing power.
So like an oligarchy, a super ancient democracy.
Exactly. The Vaji, for example,
Mm-hmm.
they may have even managed their resources collectively.
Really?
Imagine that a form of cooperative governance
Cooperative governance?
thousands of years ago
Thousands of years ago.
makes you wonder about their decision-making process.
It really does.
Yeah.
Along with these organized states come fortified cities.
Yes.
What does that tell us about life back then?
Well, for one, it speaks to the need for defense, in this new political landscape.
Right.
But these cities also needed resources and
Yeah.
administration,
Okay.
indicating, a growing complexity in society.
So you're saying the rise of these Mahajanapadas wasn't just about territory?
No.
It was about a shift in how people organize themselves.
Exactly.
Wow.
And from these powerful states, one in particular rises to prominence.
Okay.
Magadha.
Magadha,
Yeah, it's like the rock star of the Mahajanapadas.
the rock star. What made them so successful?
Well, they had a few things going for them.
Okay.
Their land was fertile,
Mm.
perfect for agriculture.
All right.
They had access to iron mines for tools and weapons.
Okay.
And their location on the Ganga River,
Yeah.
prime real estate for trade and communication.
So they had the resources, the location.
Right.
But there must have been something else.
Oh, absolutely. Ambitious rulers played a key role. Figures like Bimbisara
Okay.
and Ajatasattu, they're
Yeah.
often credited with expanding Magadha's power.
Ambitious rulers.
Indeed.
And eventually that ambition leads to the rise of a powerful empire.
The Mauryan Empire.
The Mauryan Empire.
A vast territory.
Huge.
Stretching from Afghanistan to Orissa.
Wow. Even today, that's impressive.
It really is.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Yes.
In terms of sources, right?
Absolutely.
We have records from a Greek ambassador,
Right.
a treatise on politics called the Arthashastra,
Uh-huh.
and, of course, Asoka's inscriptions.
It's like having multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
On the same story.
I like that.
For example, Megasthenes, the Greek ambassador,
Mm-hmm.
he described the Mauryan army as having 600,000 foot soldiers.
600,000.
That's not even counting the chariots, the cavalry,
Wow.
and the elephants.
That's incredible. Can you imagine trying to organize and supply an army that massive?
It's mind-boggling.
It really is.
And then there's the Arthashastra, attributed to a minister named Kartilya.
Mm-hmm.
It offers insights into the Mauryans' political strategies
Okay.
and administrative thinking.
Interesting.
It even has detailed instructions on capturing elephants for the army.
Sounds like essential reading for any ruler with imperial ambitions.
I'd say so.
But I think what people find most fascinating about the Mauryan Empire
Yeah?
is Asoka.
Ahsoka?
He wasn't your typical power-hungry emperor.
That's right.
He was different.
He championed this concept of Dhamma,
Dhamma.
which promoted living an ethical and just life.
So we're talking about things like respect for elders,
Yes.
kindness tolerant.
Exactly.
Okay.
Ahsoka even encouraged nonviolence
Wow.
and respect for all living creatures.
Interesting.
His inscriptions promoted these values
Mhm.
throughout his vast empire.
Now that's a unique approach to ruling,
It is.
trying to unite a diverse empire,
Right.
not through force,
Yeah.
but through shared values.
Precisely.
But did it actually work?
That's a question historians still debate.
Okay.
It likely had varying degrees of success
Yeah.
across the empire.
Sure.
It's one thing to inscribe these values on pillars,
Right.
but actually putting them into practice
Mhm.
across such a vast and diverse territory
Yeah.
would have been incredibly challenging.
It makes you think about how power and ideals intersect.
It does.
It's easy to say you believe in something,
Uh-huh.
but much harder to live it out,
Yes.
especially when you're ruling an empire.
Absolutely.
So we've got this emperor promoting ethical behavior, but what was life actually like for everyday people in the Mauryan Empire?
Well, you have to imagine a huge range of experiences, right?
Okay.
Someone living in the capital city, Pataliputra,
Uh-huh.
they'd have a very different life than
Right.
a farmer out in a rural village.
Of course, it's easy to forget how vast and diverse this empire was.
Yeah.
What kind of clues do we have about the daily lives of people in these different settings?
For the cities, archaeology paints a pretty vibrant picture.
Okay.
We find evidence of bustling marketplaces,
Mm-hmm.
workshops, and even public spaces for gatherings.
Wow.
Imagine the sights and sounds,
Okay.
the energy of commerce and community.
It makes history come alive when you can picture those details.
It does.
Speaking of things that make history come alive,
Yeah.
what about those gorgeous northern black polished ware pottery pieces?
Oh, yes.
Talk about style.
They certainly had an eye for aesthetics.
They did.
That sleek, polished pottery
Yeah.
points to a level of sophistication and artistry.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't limited to the elite either.
Interesting. So it's fascinating to see how these material objects
Yes,
can provide insights into a culture's values and tastes.
absolutely.
But of course, it wasn't all city life
Right.
and fancy pottery.
No.
What about the vast majority of people
Yes.
who lived in rural areas?
Agriculture was undergoing a major transformation.
Okay.
During this period,
Mm-hmm.
the introduction of iron plows
Okay.
in the fertile river valleys
Yeah.
made a huge difference in agricultural production.
So we're talking about a sudden surplus of food.
It certainly boosted productivity,
Okay.
allowed farmers to cultivate more land.
And what kind of impact did this new technology have?
Well, it also had social implications.
Interesting.
We see evidence of growing social stratification,
Okay.
where some individuals were able to acquire more land and wealth
Mm-hmm.
than others.
It seems technology, even back then,
Yeah,
could be a double-edged sword.
that's right.
Progress for some,
Uh-huh.
but potentially at the expense of others.
Exactly. And this period also sees the emergence of land grants,
Land grants.
documented in inscriptions.
Okay.
Kings and queens would grant land to religious institutions
Okay.
or brahmanas,
Interesting.
creating new power dynamics in rural areas.
It makes you think about who benefits from these changes
Yeah,
and who might get left behind.
that's one of the big questions historians grapple with.
Of course.
We have to be mindful of whose voices are represented in the historical record
Mm-hmm.
and whose are missing.
You mean groups like
Yeah.
pastoralists,
Pastoralists.
fisherfolk,
Uh-huh.
those living outside the major cities?
Exactly.
Okay.
Their lives are less documented,
Right.
but they played a vital role
Yeah.
in the empire's social and economic fabric.
Of course. So we have to piece together their stories.
Yes.
From scattered archaeological finds
Uh-huh.
and brief mentions in literary texts.
It's like a detective story trying to uncover those hidden narratives.
It is. But speaking of connections,
Yes.
what about trade during this period?
Oh, trade.
The Mauryan Empire was connected to a vast network of trade routes.
It was imagine caravans laden with spices,
Wow.
textiles, precious metals, all making their way across the subcontinent and beyond.
Okay.
We're talking about routes connecting India to Central Asia,
Wow.
China, Southeast Asia, and even the Roman Empire.
The Roman Empire. So we're talking about a truly globalized world even back then.
In a sense, yes.
Wow.
These trade networks weren't just about goods.
Okay.
They were also conduits for the exchange of ideas, technologies, and religious beliefs.
It's fascinating to think about the cultural mixing that must have occurred.
It is.
And what's incredible
Yeah.
is that we have archaeological evidence to back this up.
We do.
Roman coins found in South India.
Uh-huh.
Indian goods showing up in Roman settlements.
Right.
It paints a picture of a world far more interconnected than we might imagine.
It's a reminder that even ancient societies weren't isolated.
Yeah.
They were part of a larger web of interactions and exchange
Okay.
that span vast distances.
And speaking of exchange, this period also sees the rise of coinage.
Coinage, yes.
What impact did that have on daily life?
Well, before coins, imagine bartering, exchanging goods and services directly.
Right.
Coinage made trade more efficient
Okay.
and standardized.
Got it.
We find punch-marked coins from as early as the 6th century BCE,
Really?
some issued by kings, others perhaps by merchants.
So even back then, money was a powerful force shaping the economy.
It was, and as time went on,
Yeah?
those coins started to feature images and names of rulers.
Okay, like those impressive gold coins
Exact.
issued by the Kushanas and the Guptas.
Think of it
Yeah.
as a way for rulers to assert their authority,
Okay.
to quite literally put their stamp on the economy.
It's almost like ancient marketing, using coins to project an image of power and prosperity.
It is, but was this picture of prosperity accurate?
Right, was life really good for most people in these empires?
It's tempting to romanticize the past,
Uh-huh.
but the reality is always more complicated.
Sure.
While some segments of society clearly flourished,
Yeah.
others struggled.
Right. And even empires are vulnerable
Yes,
to forces beyond their control.
absolutely.
So what caused these seemingly powerful empires to decline?
There are many factors, but one theory points to the collapse of the Western Roman Empire.
Okay.
That disruption to trade networks
Mm-hmm.
could have had ripple effects throughout the ancient world,
Yeah.
including India.
It's a good reminder that history is full of interconnected events.
It is.
What happens in one part of the world
Yes,
can have consequences far away.
absolutely. It highlights the importance of taking a long view,
I see.
understanding that historical processes unfold over time
Yeah.
and across vast geographical spaces.
It's all about connecting the dots,
It is.
seeing the patterns and influences that shape the human experience.
Precisely. And that's where those unsung heroes of history come in.
Okay.
The epigraphists.
The inscription decipherers.
Yes.
They really are the key to unlocking so much of this ancient knowledge.
Without their painstaking work,
Mm-hmm.
deciphering those ancient scripts,
Yeah,
we wouldn't have access to these incredible historical insights.
that's true. Just imagine trying to make sense of those inscriptions
Yeah.
without knowing what the symbols meant.
It would be like trying to read a language from another planet.
Totally fascinating, but completely incomprehensible.
Exactly. So let's take a moment to appreciate those dedicated scholars who
Let's
make
start
these
that.
deep dives into history possible.
But I'm curious, how do they actually go about deciphering these ancient scripts?
Oh, it's a fascinating process,
Okay.
often involving careful comparison and analysis.
Okay,
For example, with Brahmi scholars, compared the letters to those found
okay.
in later Bengali and Devanagari manuscripts.
So it's like tracing the evolution of a language through its written form.
Precisely, like a linguistic family tree.
I like that. And with Kharosthi,
Karasa.
the script used in the Northwest,
Right.
they got a lucky break.
They did a lucky break.
What happened?
Well, they discovered bilingual coins from the Indo-Greek kings.
Bilingual coins.
These coins had the same text written in both Greek and Kharosthi,
Oh, wow.
providing a Rosetta Stone for deciphering the script.
That's amazing. Sounds like detective work.
It is.
Using clues and cross-references to unlock the secrets of the past.
But even with all the tools and expertise,
Right.
deciphering inscriptions isn't always straightforward.
Sure.
They can be damaged,
Okay.
incomplete,
Mm-hmm.
or the meaning of words can change over time.
Of course.
It's a constant process of interpretation and debate.
It reminds us that history is not just about facts.
No,
It's about interpretation.
exactly.
And sometimes, even when we can read the words,
Yes,
they don't tell the whole story.
that's right. Take, for example, that famous Asokan inscription,
Okay.
expressing remorse after his conquest of Kalinga.
It's often cited as evidence of his change of heart.
Yeah.
His embrace of nonviolence.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
That particular inscription hasn't been found in Kalinga itself.
That's intriguing. What could that tell us?
It raises all sorts of questions.
Yeah.
Was it too painful a reminder for the people of Kalinga?
Okay.
Was it deliberately omitted for political reasons?
Interesting.
We can speculate, but we may never know for sure.
It just goes to show that history is full of mysteries
It is.
and unanswered questions.
Yes. Even with all the evidence we gather, there's always more to uncover.
Right.
More to interpret.
And that's what makes it so endlessly
it
fascinating.
is.
We're constantly piecing together a puzzle.
Yes.
And with each new discovery, the picture becomes more complex, more nuanced.
Absolutely. So we've got empires rising and falling,
Yeah.
trade networks connecting distant lands, new technologies transforming daily life.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but amidst all this grand historical sweep,
Okay.
what about the personal experiences of the people who lived through these times?
Ah, yes. That's where things get really interesting.
They do.
How do we access the thoughts,
Yeah.
the emotions, the lived experiences of those who didn't leave behind written accounts?
That's the question.
Right? What were their hopes and dreams?
Yeah.
What kept them up at night? What made them laugh?
Those are the questions that bring history to life.
I agree.
And while we may not have diaries or letters from
Right.
everyday people,
Yeah.
we can find clues in other sources, stories and folktales, for example.
Oh.
Higher glimpses into their worldviews,
Mm-hmm.
values, and beliefs.
So we can learn about history through storytelling.
Exactly.
Interesting.
For example, the Jataka tales,
Okay.
part of the Buddhist tradition, often feature stories about common people
Okay.
navigating the challenges of daily life.
Mm-hmm.
One tale describes a village
Okay.
so burdened by a king's excessive taxes
Yeah.
that the residents decide to flee to the forest.
That's quite a dramatic response to tax season.
It is, but it highlights the potential tensions
Okay.
between rulers and the ruled,
Mm-hmm.
especially in rural areas
Right.
where agriculture was the backbone of the economy.
Of course, it shows that people weren't just passive subjects.
No.
They found ways to resist or
Yes.
negotiate their circumstances.
Yes.
That's a good point. We often think of history as this grand narrative
Right.
of kings and battles.
Uh-huh.
But it's important to remember that it's ultimately about people
Yes.
making choices, trying to make the best of their situation.
And those choices, those individual acts of agency,
Okay?
they're reflected not just in stories,
Mm-hmm.
but also in the archaeological record.
Oh, interesting.
The spread of ironclads,
Okay.
the adoption of rice transplantation,
Mm-hmm.
even the construction of irrigation systems.
Wow.
These were all decisions made by communities shaping their own destinies.
It's amazing to think that even without knowing their names
Yes.
or hearing their voices directly,
Right.
we can still see the impact of their decisions
Uh-huh.
on the course of history.
It's like they're leaving their mark on the world
Yeah,
through their actions.
that's the beauty of studying history.
It is.
It's a constant process of connecting the dots,
Yeah.
piecing together evidence from diverse sources
Uh-huh.
to create a richer,
Right.
more multifaceted understanding of the human experience.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into early India,
Yeah.
what would you say are the key takeaways for our listener?
Well, I think what's important to remember is that this period was a time of profound transformation.
It was.
We see the emergence of powerful states,
Yes.
the growth of cities,
Uh-huh.
the spread of new technologies,
Right.
and the expansion of trade networks.
It's a period that laid the foundation for much of Indian history.
But it's also a period that reminds us that history is complex.
It is.
There's no single narrative,
No.
no easy answers.
We have to be willing to grapple with the ambiguities, the contradiction, the voices that are heard and those that are silenced.
Exactly. And by engaging with those complexities,
Yes.
by embracing the richness and diversity of the past,
Right.
we gain a deeper understanding,
Absolutely.
not only of history, but of ourselves.
Well said. And to our listener, I'd encourage you to continue exploring this fascinating period of history.
There's so much more to discover.
Yeah.
So many more stories waiting to be told.
Absolutely.
We've talked about powerful empires and ambitious rulers, but uh, I'm curious about the stories that aren't always recorded,
Right.
in inscriptions or grand historical accounts.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the lives of everyday people in early India?
It's a challenge,
Okay?
but not impossible
Yeah.
to get a glimpse into those lives.
Okay.
While we may not have personal diaries or letters,
Right.
other sources can provide valuable insights.
What kind of sources are we talking about?
Well, think about the stories and folk tales
Okay.
that have been passed down through generations.
Okay.
While often fictional, they can reveal a lot about
Yeah.
the values, beliefs, and concerns of ordinary people.
So we can learn about history through storytelling.
Exactly. For example, the Jataka tales,
Okay.
part of the Buddhist tradition,
Right.
they often feature stories
Okay.
about common people navigating the challenges of daily life.
Okay.
One tale describes a village
Uh-huh.
so burdened by a king's excessive taxes
Okay.
that the residents decide to flee to the forest.
That's quite a dramatic response to tax season.
It is, but it highlights the potential tensions
Okay.
between rulers and the ruled,
Mhm.
especially in rural areas where agriculture was the backbone of the economy.
Right. It shows that people weren't just passive subjects.
No.
They found ways to resist or negotiate their circumstances.
Exactly.
That's a good point. We often think of history as this grand narrative of kings and battles.
Right.
But it's important to remember that it's ultimately about people making choices,
Yes.
trying to make the best of their situation.
And those choices, those individual acts of agency,
Okay.
they're reflected not just in stories,
Yeah.
but also in the archaeological record,
Interesting. How so?
the spread of ironclads,
Okay.
the adoption of rice transplantation,
Mm-hmm.
even the construction of irrigation systems.
Wow.
These were all decisions made by communities shaping their own destinies.
It's amazing to think that even without knowing their names or hearing their voices directly,
Yeah.
we can still see the impact of their decisions.
We can.
On the course of history, it's like they're leaving their mark on the world
Exactly.
through their actions.
Through their action.
That's the beauty of studying history.
It is.
It's a constant process of connecting the dots,
Yeah.
piecing together evidence from diverse sources
Uh-huh.
to create a richer, more multifaceted understanding of the human experience.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into early India,
Yeah.
what final thought would you leave our listener with?
I'd say this period from the rise of the Mahajanapadas
Yes.
to the decline of the Mauryan Empire
Mm-hmm.
offers a profound lesson in the interconnectedness of things.
It does.
We've seen how political changes, technological innovations,
Right.
economic forces,
Uh-huh.
even the spread of ideas can all intertwine to shape the course of history.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that history is not just a collection of isolated events,
Right.
but a complex web of interactions and influences that
Yeah.
continue to resonate even today.
And as we delve deeper into the past,
Yes.
as we explore those ancient whispers
Mm-hmm.
and connect them to our present,
Right.
we gain a richer appreciation for the forces that have shaped our world
Mm.
and the possibilities that lie ahead.
Beautifully said.
Well, this has been an incredible journey through early India.
It has.
It's been a truly eye-opening experience.
The pleasure was all mine. Until next time.